The store was quiet in the way most weekday afternoons are quiet. Not peaceful, not calm, just uneventful. The soft hum of fluorescent lights filled the air. A few customers drifted between aisles, carts rolling slowly over polished tile. Somewhere near the back, a scanner beeped. A child laughed briefly, then was hushed. Nothing about this moment suggested chaos. Nothing warned anyone that within minutes, this ordinary store would turn into a stage for shouting, disbelief, and flashing police lights. Because when the woman walked through the automatic doors that afternoon, no one noticed her. Not yet. She looked like any other customer. Mid-40s, blonde hair pulled tight into a ponytail, designer handbag hanging from her shoulder, sunglasses still on her face even though she was indoors. Her posture screamed confidence, the kind that borders on entitlement. She didn't greet anyone. She didn't smile. She walked straight in like she already owned the place. And maybe, in her mind, she did. Her name doesn't matter. What matters is how she behaved. She made a beeline for the customer service counter. No browsing, no cart, no hesitation. That alone caught the attention of the store associate behind the desk. A young woman in her early 20s, wearing a blue vest and a polite, practiced smile. "Hi there," the associate said warmly. "How can I help you today?" The woman slammed her purse onto the counter. "I'm returning this." She pulled out a boxed item, electronics, still sealed, and slid it across the surface with force. The associate nodded. "Of course. Do you have your receipt?" The question was standard, routine, harmless, but the woman's face changed instantly. Her jaw tightened, her lips pressed into a thin line. Her sunglasses came off slowly, deliberately, and were placed on the counter like a warning. "I don't need a receipt," she snapped. The associate blinked. "I'm sorry, ma'am. For returns, we do need—" "I've returned things here plenty of times without one," the woman cut in, her voice already louder than necessary. "Don't lie to me." A nearby customer glanced over, then another. The associate stayed calm. "Our policy requires a receipt or the original card used for purchase." That's when the woman laughed. Not a friendly laugh. A sharp, mocking sound that echoed just a little too loudly. "That's ridiculous," she said. "I spend thousands of dollars here. I'm not some thief off the street." The associate swallowed. "I understand, but I still can't process a return without proof of purchase." The woman leaned forward. Her eyes narrowed. "You will process this return." It wasn't a request. It was a command. The associate felt her heart rate pick up. She had dealt with upset customers before, angry ones, even rude ones. But something about this felt different, more aggressive, more personal. "I'm really sorry," she said again. "I can call a manager if you'd like." "Oh, I want a manager," the woman said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "because clearly you don't know how to do your job." A manager was called. While they waited, the woman crossed her arms and sighed dramatically, tapping her foot against the tile like a ticking clock. Every second felt like a challenge. Other customers began to slow their movements, pretending to browse while clearly listening. The manager arrived, a man in his 30s, calm expression, name badge pinned neatly to his chest. "Hi, I'm the store manager," he said. "I understand there's an issue with a return?" "Yes," the woman snapped. "Your employee is refusing to help me." The manager turned to the associate. She quietly explained the situation. He nodded. Then he turned back to the woman. "Ma'am, our return policy does require a receipt or original payment method. Without that, I can't approve the return." For a moment there was silence. Then disbelief exploded into fury. "You've got to be kidding me," the woman said loudly. "So now you're backing her up?" "Yes," the manager replied evenly. "This is company policy." "I don't care about your policy," she shouted. "I'm a paying customer." Her voice cut through the store like a siren. Heads turned fully now. This was no longer private. This was a show. "You're accusing me of stealing," she continued. "Is that what this is?" "No one said that," the manager replied. "We just need proof of purchase." "Well, I don't have it," she said sharply. "And that's not my problem." The manager took a breath. "Then unfortunately I can't process the return." That was the moment. The exact second everything changed. The woman slapped her hand on the counter. Hard. The sound cracked through the air. "This is unacceptable," she screamed. "I'm not leaving until I get my money back." The associate flinched. A customer gasped. The manager stiffened. "Ma'am, please lower your voice." "Don't tell me what to do," she yelled. "You people think you can treat customers however you want." Her face was red now. Veins stood out along her neck. She wasn't just upset. She was unraveling. "Ma'am," the manager said firmly, If you continue to disrupt the store, I'll have to ask you to leave." The words hung in the air. Ask you to leave. The woman stared at him like he had just insulted her entire existence. "You can't kick me out," she said slowly. "I'm not doing anything wrong." "You're yelling and causing a disturbance," he replied. "Please take your item and exit the store." That was it. The final spark. "I'm not going anywhere," she screamed. Her voice echoed across the aisles. Shoppers froze. Phones quietly came out. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." The woman grabbed the box she'd tried to return and hurled it back onto the counter. "I have rights," she yelled, "and you're violating them." The manager stepped back slightly. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one last time to leave." She stepped forward instead, chest heaving, eyes blazing. "Make me." The manager looked around. Customers were watching. Employees stood frozen. This was no longer a disagreement. This was a confrontation. He reached for his radio. "Security to customer service," he said calmly. The woman scoffed. "Oh, now you're calling backup? Typical." She turned toward the crowd. "Can you believe this?" she shouted. "This is how they treat loyal customers." No one responded. The silence only fueled her rage. Security approached. 2 uniformed guards, cautious but composed. "Ma'am," one of them said, "we need you to leave the store." She laughed again, bitter, mocking. "I'm not leaving until I get my refund," she said. "And if you touch me, I'll sue every single one of you." The guards exchanged a glance. This was escalating fast, and someone, somewhere, had already made a call. Because while the woman continued shouting, while security tried to reason with her, while customers recorded in stunned silence, the sound of distant sirens was already getting closer. By the time the sirens became audible inside the store, the atmosphere had completely changed. What was once a routine shopping afternoon now felt like a pressure cooker. The woman stood at the center of it all. Arms crossed, chin raised, eyes darting around as if daring someone to challenge her again. Security stood a few feet away. The manager stayed near the counter. Customers hovered in frozen clusters, pretending to look at merchandise while secretly recording every second. And the woman? She was just getting started. "I know my rights," she said loudly, pacing back and forth in front of the counter. "You people can't detain me. This is harassment." "No one is detaining you," the manager replied. "We're asking you to leave." "I'm a customer," she snapped. "I have a right to be here." Security remained calm. "Ma'am," one of the guards said, "once a business asks you to leave, you're required to do so." She stopped pacing and pointed at him. "Don't quote the law to me," she said. "I know the law better than you." A customer whispered, "She really doesn't." Another quietly shook their head in disbelief. The woman turned suddenly toward the associate behind the counter. "And you," she shouted, "this is your fault." The associate's eyes widened. "You started this," the woman continued. "If you weren't so incompetent, we wouldn't be here." The associate's hands trembled slightly as she gripped the edge of the counter. "I was just following policy," she said softly. "Oh, please," the woman scoffed. "You're hiding behind rules because you're lazy." That was when the manager stepped in front of the associate. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "you will not speak to my employee like that." The woman laughed. "Oh, look," she sneered, "the hero steps in." Her sarcasm dripped like poison. The woman took out her phone and started recording. "I want everyone to see this," she said loudly. "This store discriminates against customers." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "Discriminates?" someone whispered. "Yes," she continued, pointing the camera directly at the manager. "They're targeting me. I don't know why, but I'm sure it's something illegal." The manager kept his composure. "Ma'am, please stop recording our employees and leave the store." "Oh, now you don't want evidence?" she snapped. "That's interesting." Security stepped closer. "Ma'am, police are on their way," one guard said. "If you don't leave now, this will escalate." She froze. For just a second. Then she smiled. A slow, smug smile. "Good," she said. "I want the police." Gasps echoed softly. The manager frowned. "You don't want this to go further?" "Oh, I do," she replied confidently. "Because when they get here, they'll see who's really in the wrong." Her confidence was absolute, unshakable, completely misplaced. While waiting, the woman's behavior grew louder, sharper, and more erratic. She began addressing random customers. "Did you see how they treated me?" she asked a man with a cart. He avoided eye contact and walked away. She scoffed. "Cowards." She turned to a woman holding her phone. "Make sure you get my good side," she said sarcastically. "This will be viral." Her voice bounced off the walls. Children were pulled closer to parents. An elderly couple quietly left the store. The associate behind the counter wiped a tear from her cheek when she thought no one was looking. The manager noticed. His jaw tightened. The door slid open. 2 uniformed police officers stepped inside. The chatter dropped instantly. Even the woman paused. The officers surveyed the scene. Security present, customers recording, one woman clearly at the center. "Who called?" one officer asked. "I did," the manager replied. "This customer has been asked to leave multiple times and is refusing." The woman stepped forward immediately. "That's a lie," she said loudly. "I'm being harassed." The officers looked at her, then at the manager, then at security. "Ma'am," one officer said calmly, "is it true you were asked to leave?" "Yes," she admitted, "for no reason." The officer nodded slowly. "A business has the right to refuse service and ask someone to leave." "Well, that's unconstitutional," she snapped. The officer blinked, then sighed. "Ma'am, it's not." She scoffed loudly. "You're just taking their side." "No," the officer replied. "We're explaining the law." The second officer spoke up. "We need you to gather your belongings and exit the store now." The woman stared at him, then shook her head. "No." The word echoed. Simple, defiant, final. "Ma'am," the first officer said, his tone firmer now. "If you continue to refuse, you can be arrested for trespassing." She laughed. A sharp, hollow laugh. "You're not arresting me," she said. "I didn't do anything." The officer stepped closer. "This is your final warning." She crossed her arms. "Do it," she said. "Go ahead." The store was silent. Everyone sensed it. The point of no return. The officer reached for his radio. The woman's confidence wavered for just a fraction of a second. Then she doubled down. "I hope you all enjoy the lawsuit," she shouted, "because I'm going to own this place." The officer nodded to his partner. "All right, ma'am," he said. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back." Her eyes widened. "What?" she said sharply. "You're serious?" "Yes," he replied. "You are under arrest for criminal trespass." The woman stepped backward. "No, no, no," she said. "This is insane." She looked around. No one intervened. No one defended her. Phone stayed up. The officers moved closer, and that's when she screamed. The scream ripped through the store like a lightning strike. "Get your hands off me." Heads snapped up. Customers recoiled. Phones tilted higher. The woman staggered backward as if the words alone could push the officers away. "I did nothing wrong," she shouted, her voice cracking with rage and panic. "This is police brutality." One of the officers held his hands up, calm but firm. "Ma'am, stop yelling," he said. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back." She shook her head violently. "No, you don't get to touch me." Her breathing was erratic now, sharp inhales, frantic exhales. The confidence she had worn so boldly minutes earlier was unraveling, thread by thread. The second officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, you are resisting," he warned. "I'm not resisting," she screamed. "I'm defending myself." A collective gasp rolled through the store. Someone whispered, "This is unreal." The woman spun toward the crowd. "Do you see this?" she yelled. "I walked in here to return something, and now I'm being arrested." Her voice wavered between outrage and desperation. "This is kidnapping!" she screamed. "This is illegal!" The manager stood frozen, his face pale. The associate behind the counter had stepped away entirely, hands clasped tightly at her chest. Security hovered nearby, unsure whether to intervene. "Ma'am," the first officer said again, louder now, "stop resisting." She jerked her arm away as he reached for her wrist. "Don't touch me!" That was enough. The officer took hold of her arm. She exploded. She twisted, flailed, and tried to pull free, heels screeching against the tile. "I'm being attacked!" she screamed at the top of her lungs. The sound was piercing. Children covered their ears. A woman in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God!" "Stop resisting," the officer commanded. "I'm not resisting," she shrieked again, even as she yanked her arm away. Her purse slipped off her shoulder and hit the floor, spilling its contents. Lipstick, keys, receipts, loose change scattering across the aisle. The chaos only intensified her panic. "You're humiliating me," she yelled. "I pay your salary." The second officer moved in to assist. "Ma'am, you are making this worse," he said. She kicked backward. Missed. Barely. That changed everything. The officers exchanged a glance. This was no longer verbal noncompliance. This was physical resistance. "Ma'am," one officer said sternly, "if you continue, you will be charged with resisting arrest." She laughed hysterically. "Add it to the list," she yelled. I'll see you all in court." Her voice cracked on the last word. For the first time, fear crept through her anger. Her eyes darted wildly. This wasn't going how she imagined. Not at all. The officer guided her toward the ground. "Get off me!" she screamed. They lowered her carefully but firmly to the floor. The sound of her body hitting tile echoed. Gasps erupted. Someone said, "She did that to herself." "Stop moving!" the officer commanded. She thrashed, legs kicking, palms slapping uselessly against the floor. "This is assault!" she cried. "I'm a woman!" The words hung in the air. Uncomfortable, manipulative, wrong. The officer ignored it and secured one wrist. The click of metal was unmistakable. Final. Real. Her eyes went wide. "No, no, no," she whispered. Then she screamed again. "Help me! Someone help me!" No one moved. No one spoke. The second cuff snapped shut. Silence fell, thick and heavy. The woman lay there, breathing hard, tears streaming down her face. The tantrum was over. Reality had arrived. The officers helped her to her feet. Her hair was disheveled, makeup smeared, designer confidence gone. She looked around desperately, searching for sympathy. She found none. A customer shook their head. Another muttered, "Unbelievable." The manager exhaled slowly, tension draining from his shoulders. The associate leaned against the counter, visibly shaken. "Ma'am," the officer said, "you are being charged with criminal trespass and resisting arrest." "That's not fair," she said weakly. "I just wanted a refund." The officer didn't respond. They began escorting her toward the exit. She suddenly stiffened. "You can't take me out like this," she said. "People are watching." The officer replied calmly, "You chose this." The door slid open. Daylight flooded in. And just before they crossed the threshold, the woman did something no one expected. She stopped, turned, and shouted one last thing that sent a shock through everyone listening. Just before the officers guided her fully out of the store, the woman twisted her head back toward the crowd. Her face was red, eyes wild, tears streaking through smeared makeup. And then she screamed it. "This isn't over!" The words echoed against the walls, bouncing through the aisles like a threat carved into stone. Customers flinched. One person quietly whispered, "Yes, it is." The automatic doors slid open, and suddenly the entire scene spilled outside. The parking lot was busy. Cars pulled in and out. People loaded groceries into trunks. And now, every single one of them turned to stare. The woman was led out in handcuffs, her wrists bound behind her back, her designer purse dangling uselessly from an officer's hand. A few bystanders froze mid-step. Others instinctively reached for their phones. "This is insane," the woman muttered, her voice trembling now. "I didn't do anything." One officer guided her carefully down the curb. "Watch your step," he said. She scoffed. "Oh, now you care?" But her feet shuffled nervously. The bravado was gone. In its place was panic. A man near his truck shook his head. "All this over a return?" he said quietly. Another woman whispered, "She could have just left." A teenager filming murmured, "This is going everywhere." The woman heard that. Her head snapped up. "Don't record me!" she screamed. But it was too late. The damage was already done. Her face, her voice, her meltdown, immortalized. She turned to the officers. "Make them stop." One officer replied calmly, "They're in a public place." Her shoulders slumped. Reality hit again, harder. As they approached the patrol car, she suddenly stopped walking. "No," she said, "I can't go in there." "Ma'am, you need to keep moving," the officer said. "I didn't agree to this," she replied weakly. Her knees trembled. Her breathing quickened. "I have anxiety," she blurted out. "You can't do this to me." The officer paused, assessing her. "We'll take things slow," he said. "But you still need to cooperate." She shook her head frantically. "This is all their fault," she cried. "They embarrassed me first." She looked back at the store, at the employees watching from inside. Her eyes burned with resentment. "You ruined my life," she shouted. The manager didn't respond. He simply turned away. That hurt more than anything. The officer opened the back door of the patrol car. The sound was heavy. Final. She stared at it like it was a prison cell. "I can't fit in there," she said desperately. "You can," the officer replied. "I'm not a criminal," she whispered. The officer met her gaze. "Today your actions say otherwise." She let out a broken sob. For the first time since she walked into the store, she stopped fighting. They guided her inside. The door shut. Click. The sound echoed louder than her screams ever had. Inside the store, the tension slowly released. Customers whispered among themselves. Employees exhaled shakily. The associate sat down behind the counter, hands still trembling. The manager approached her. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded, though her eyes were glassy. "I just didn't expect it to get that bad." "No one ever does," he replied. Outside, the patrol car pulled away. The woman stared out the window, mascara streaked, jaw clenched. Her phone buzzed in her purse. Notifications, messages, mentions. She didn't need to see them to know. The internet had already decided. As the car turned onto the main road, she finally whispered the truth. Not to the officers, not to the crowd, but to herself. "I just wanted my money back." But what she got instead was something far more expensive. The patrol car disappeared down the road. And just like that, it was over. No shouting, no screaming, no chaos, only silence. The store returned to its ordinary rhythm. Carts rolling, scanners beeping, doors opening and closing. But something had changed. Everyone who witnessed it knew that. They had just watched a moment where entitlement collided with reality. And reality won. At the police station, the woman finally stopped talking. No more threats, no more accusations, no more yelling. She sat on a cold bench, wrists sore, eyes swollen, staring at a wall she could no longer argue with. An officer read the charges calmly. Criminal trespass, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct. Each word landed heavier than the last. "This is ridiculous," she muttered weakly. But no one argued. There was nothing left to debate. Her confidence, once loud enough to fill a store, now barely filled the room. Her phone was returned to her hours later. The screen lit up instantly. Notifications stacked endlessly. Messages from friends, texts from family, missed calls. And then social media. Videos, clips, comments, thousands of them. She scrolled slowly. Her own voice screamed back at her. Her own face twisted in rage. Her own words, "Make me," now frozen in time. Strangers dissected her behavior. Some laughed. Some criticized. Some shook their heads in disbelief. But almost all agreed on one thing. She had done this to herself. For the first time, she wasn't in charge of the narrative. She couldn't shout louder. She couldn't demand her way out. She couldn't threaten anyone into submission. The internet didn't care who she thought she was. It only cared about what she did. And what she did was impossible to defend. The associate went home early that day. Her hands still shook when she replayed it in her mind. The shouting, the pointing, the fear. But she also remembered something else. The moment the manager stepped in front of her. The moment security backed her up. The moment the officer said, "You need to leave." She wasn't alone. And that mattered. The manager filed the incident report carefully, line by line. Not out of anger, out of responsibility. Because rules aren't about power. They're about boundaries. This story didn't start with police. It didn't start with handcuffs. It didn't even start with yelling. It started with a simple word. No. A word the woman wasn't used to hearing. A word she believed didn't apply to her. And when reality refused to bend, she broke instead. It wasn't about a refund. It was never about a refund. It was about entitlement. About believing rules are for other people. About thinking volume equals authority. And the cost? Public humiliation, criminal charges, a digital footprint that will never disappear. All because she couldn't walk away. Every day workers enforce policies they didn't create. They absorb anger they don't deserve. They stand between entitlement and order. Most customers understand that. Some don't. And when someone chooses confrontation over common sense, this is what it looks like. A moment that could have ended quietly, instead became a lesson broadcast to the world. Because in the end, the store didn't ruin her day. She did.